So with that, I want to officially thank everyone for attending today. You know, we realize that everyone has a very busy schedule, and we really appreciate you spending an hour with us this afternoon, and I'm sure you're going to find the content valuable. So we have a packed agenda. I want to dive right in with just a couple of housekeeping notes. So we are obviously running this presentation via VoIP. And also, due to the large number of attendees, we are not going to be able to address questions related to the content. So please use the chat for any technical support or questions related to getting connected, but we very much hope that you enjoy the presentation that we will be sharing. And with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our presenters. We are going to have Karen Yoshino, who's a principal strategist from Blackboard Enterprise Consulting. She's really going to be our moderator and our facilitator. And she's going to be joined by Melissa Sang of Shenandoah University and Jason Rohde of Northern Illinois University. And they're going to be really sharing their insights and experiences at their universities as it relates to our survey findings. So here is just a brief overview of the flow and what you can expect for the next hour. Karen is going to open and share a little bit about sort of changing student expectations, and then Jason and Melissa will both provide a brief overview of their universities so you can get an understanding of their background and really where they're coming from. And then Karen's going to lead the discussion of the Trends in Online Learning report with the help and perspectives from Jason and Melissa. And finally, Jason and Melissa will close out by sharing what's next for them in terms of online learning at their universities. And then we're also going to close with a couple of ways that you can go to find more information. So with that, I really want to pass the presentation over to Karen so she can get started. Karen, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect. Go ahead and dive right in.
Sorry.
Clear. No worries.
All right. So thank you, Leslie. And welcome, everyone. Thanks again from me and my colleagues here for joining us today. What I wanted to do was start with a few thoughts about the backdrop of this conversation. Although it's unstated in the title, the underlying reason we are having this discussion is that many of us are feeling some degree of pressure from students to improve their educational experience by using the technological tools we have to a greater extent than they are being used. I saw this in an article yesterday in the Daily Cougar, the University of Houston's newspaper, where they said, you know, Blackboard is not the problem. The problem is we are not using enough of the functionality to really drive student engagement. And this is from the students' perspectives. One of the student reporters wrote, students need to take charge of their own learning and let teachers know what they can do to help instead of just relying on the teachers to assume. Learning is a two-way street. So we at Blackboard have seen this movement in student agency happen over the years at Blackboard. We've used the term, along with everyone else, the traditional and non-traditional students to describe the students that we serve. Now we sense that these terms can hobble our conversations and our thinking because now almost all learners want, for example, engaging use of technology, flexible modalities, credit for prior learning, anytime, anywhere, access. So the traditional path of high school students who choose a college and follow a four-year path in a single institution and then move on to a graduate degree in some instances. Now, in a digital and information age, looks more like a bunch of swirling students. And what we see here is a complex array of high school students entering our institutions. They want a leg up. College students who graduate with credits from, on average, 2.3 institutions by the time they get their degree. And also adult learners who come back to the institutional setting to sharpen their competencies and advance themselves professionally. This complex array of changes in learner learners and their expectations require that we as educators change not only our practices, but perhaps some of the assumptions that we have been traditionally relying upon. We need to evaluate effectively and process prior earning credit, for example. Encourage their impulse to listen to and learn from their peers. Support their desire to be active participants in education and make learning visible. We need to be clear about knowledge, skills, and competencies they want and they need to achieve their career goals. So while the student is the context for this conversation, it is the implications of enabling technology that bring us to the meat of today's conversation. So let me stop there and introduce my colleagues. Melissa Stang from Shenandoah University, can you take a moment to talk about your institution?
Absolutely. Shenandoah is traditionally a residential university. While we do have some online programs and online courses, we do still tend to focus on the traditional student. We're about a 66% female university with 54%, 54% of undergraduate students and the rest being graduates. We have students from 59 different countries, faculty coming from 11 different countries, plus we have Puerto Rico, DC, and we have students here from 46 of the U.S. states.
Thank you. Jason.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Rohde, and I'm with Northern Illinois University, and our institution is a Research One public institution. We're the second largest institution in Illinois, public institution, and we're located about an hour west of Chicago. So we're just outside the suburbs. Primarily the students we serve predominantly are from the Northern Illinois region, and we draw quite extensively from the Chicago area. We have some extension campuses. Our main campus is in DeKalb, which is west of the cities, but then we do have several other extension campuses as well. And we've been using and incorporating online technologies for well over a decade now, and we're seeing a lot of use, and it's really, as we incorporate some of these online technologies and approaches, it really frees our faculty to do some really interesting things in terms of transforming their teaching and providing really engaging and transformative experiences for students. So 95% of our students and 82% of our instructional faculty are using our Blackboard learning management system each semester. So I'm really glad to be here today.
Thank you, Jason and Melissa. And I wanted to introduce you, if you haven't been aware of the Enterprise Consulting Team, which is my team. I am a subject matter expert in outcomes assessment and serve on a team of extraordinarily experienced educators who are widely recognized for their expertise in educational technology and distance learning. But more importantly, they are experienced in a broad range of issues that affect education, learning, and teaching. So on this slide, I've listed some of the topics that we help clients with. And just to sort of let you know that we also, our work typically connects an institution's vision with execution. It's focused on education. It is technology neutral. And of course, as a consultant, I hope to meet and work with you at some time in the future. So let's get right into the study, which we have labeled Trends in Online Learning. A little bit about the logistics of this. GatePoint Research conducted this study in February of 2014, in which they invited leaders from colleges and universities to participate in 2 surveys. One of the surveys was themed Usage Trends in Learning Management Systems. The second one was Online Learning and Engagement Strategies. So all in all, there are 200 survey responses that have been analyzed and the data for which we will present today. These are survey participants are senior education professionals who have a background in online learning and academic technology and advocate for the use of technology in the classroom on their campuses. And none of the participants were engaged using telemarketing. So let's take a look at the first question. And the question was posed as, where are you today with offering your courses online? And what we find here that 88% of the respondents say they have courses online. But what we'd like to do is have Melissa start and give a little bit of depth to that metric, as well as reflecting what that means on her campus.
On campus here at Shenandoah, we're actually somewhere in between the 70 and 18%. We do have courses that have been long online, like our teaching for English TESOL programs. And then we have many programs that are currently devising a complete online degree program. Shenandoah is focusing, instead of going totally online, more on the hybrid approach.
And for our institution at NIU, much like Melissa's, we're interested in offering a lot of courses in varying formats. You know, even the term, offering courses online is rather broad and can involve many different approaches, varying from select courses online to putting an entire certificate or a degree program online. And we would certainly fall within the percentage that is certainly offering courses online. And for our institution, our interest is we do have some fully online programs we would like to launch. We do have a few that we are fully online at this point and looking to expand that. But also I think we want to certainly focus on blended or hybrid programs that may consist of online courses as well as have some face-to-face experiences either at our main campus in DeKalb or regional centers that we have in the Chicago region.
Thank you, Jason. That actually sets us up very nicely for the next question, which begins to focus us in a little bit on the issue of how many courses currently use a blended learning model. And what we found in the survey was half the institutions surveyed are using a blended model for at least 25% of their courses. Jason, can you take us a little bit further into this? And also, while you're talking about it, can you address, the extent to which perhaps these new models are brought on as a result of student expectations?
Sure. We're seeing at NIU the blended delivery models really as being among some of the most desirable right now from both our faculty and students. And even the term blended learning, it can come in two flavors, right? You have blended courses and blended programs. With blended courses involving mixing online and face-to-face activities in the same course, while blended programs consist of fully online courses that are combined with some face-to-face meetings. And I happen to teach in one such award-winning online blended program at NIU. It's our MS degree in instructional technology. And it has a K-12 technology specialist endorsement, which this last year was ranked the #1 graduate online program by U.S. News and World Report. This program is technically blended because it has fully online coursework, but those are coupled with 1 to 2 pre-scheduled face-to-face meetings each term. And it's a cohort accelerated program in which the students, they've repeatedly commented not only in my course evaluations, but also in various program evaluations that we offer as to how they prefer that mix of online and face-to-face over one modality entirely. And I'd say blended certainly, it isn't for all students, and there are some that cannot attend face-to-face, and some institutions take that approach and really focus more on the fully online. And I think you definitely can have just as rigorous an experience academically fully online, but it's been my experience that many students do prefer that blended modality. And I think part of it, to your question, Karen, is that we're seeing a continued rise in blended learning at the K-12 setting, where it's really taking off, and students are coming into our colleges and universities expecting that kind of an experience where they have really the best of both worlds. And so that's something that we're seeing, is that student perspective and preference really driving where we're headed in what we offer institutionally.
Yes.
Thank you, Melissa.
Shenandoah is definitely following suit here with Jason. We have approximately 25%, a little bit more maybe, of blended currently, and they're of course looking to increase that. One of the big things that we have as a driving factor is to get everyone to understand the difference between the blended, hybrid, and web enhanced. Because most of our faculty think web enhanced is online, blended, hybrid. So it's a new mindset for us.
Thank you. And that also your comments lead us into the next question, which addresses annual growth in online programs and the survey respondents' perceptions as to what levels of advancement they were going to have. And what we found was most responders expect to grow their online learning programs. And Jason, maybe you could sort of talk about how you plan to achieve this growth, or as well as the rate of growth now going into the future versus past periods. Maybe give us a little perspective on it.
Sure, and I think it's interesting and certainly important to note that really for a decade now, there have been annual studies.
Jason?
I would be happy to respond to this, and I think it's important to point out here that really for the past decade we've seen studies each year. The Sloan Consortium has offered an annual study they've done with the Babson Survey Group and the College Board, where they've surveyed well over 2,500 academic leaders across the U.S. each year at institutions to get a sense of growth and trends in online learning. And in the findings each year, they show this rapid and steady growth. And as of this last year, I think the latest number was somewhere around 32% of university students, taking at least one online course. But interestingly, though, this last year, we're beginning to now see a flattening of that growth in online enrollments. And I think it's unrealistic to expect that we would see this continued exponential growth to persist indefinitely. And I think as I look at the results here and thinking about the expectations of our administration, I think we certainly continue to anticipate growth, but I think it's modest growth in the fact that we understand that this online educational market, it's become extremely competitive. And I think it's key for institutions as we look to grow to find our niche and what's our competitive advantage in where we want to grow. I think it's also crucial to look at the faculty expertise that you have internally to help determine what's going to be your institutional programmatic strengths. I know at NIU we're currently in the midst of identifying what are some of our existing face-to-face programs that we not only have that faculty expertise and strength in, but that we feel would be a good fit and have a strong market in our region to move them online.
Thank you. Melissa, how about that Shenandoah?
As Jason pointed out, in specific areas, especially in our health professions area, the Institutes of Medicine are pushing for online courses as a way to reach the recommendation, for example, of an 80% growth in Bachelor of Science of Nursing degree holders by the year 2020. So we're also looking at specific courses, programs that could go online to meet these needs. And in doing so, we have our University Curriculum Committee currently evaluating the faculty resources, policies that need to go in effect, and also accreditation requirements for those online programs to make sure that we do meet the learning outcomes.
Thank you. And now to kind of turn it a little bit and talk about the goals that are driving the growth of online programs and maintaining the presence of that. And of course, we found that increasing and diversifying the student body is the main driver behind institutional growth in online programs. Of course, along with that goes revenue and retention, all playing very integrally together. Can you talk about those elements and how those factors are impacting or influencing your institution, Melissa?
Well, I think your findings are very accurate. For us, the main drivers are to better accommodate our current students. Most of them a lot of them are having to get jobs, so being in the class all the time is not an option. Of course, we want to keep them, coming back and at our university taking classes. It helps them work around their work schedules at flexible degrees. Of course, that's going to improve the retention, which also increases the revenue. So these are all tied together. But another point is we want to offer our alumni and regional, local community adult learners to have the ability to attend Shenandoah. Currently, we're bringing a lot of people into the area, and our local community adult learners are seeking degrees elsewhere. So one big attraction for us is to bring those people, local community, into Shenandoah's learning community.
And
Jason, are you seeing?
Go ahead. I was just going to say that, at NIU we are seeing, a lot of these same prominent goals driving our offerings. Certainly attracting new students, especially adult learners within our region. Much like at Shenandoah, I think we're really looking at, those adults who maybe for one reason or another wouldn't otherwise be able to earn an NIU degree. That's a driving factor for us. Increasing revenue is an obvious benefit as we grow the student body. And as we move our courses online in programs, in particular, a cohesive program online, looking to provide some flexible degree completion options for students who maybe for one reason or another they need to stop out of a program, or perhaps they want to maybe study abroad or take advantage of some sort of an extended internship experience. These students can remain connected to the institution, and they can continue their progress through their academic program without needing to reside on campus. So there's definitely some real benefits there. I think we institutionally are committed to making sure that the online learning experiences we offer, for whatever that goal may be, they are of the highest quality. And I think to do so, there must be investments in both faculty training and support, as well as course development assistance, not to mention the needed student support services and things that you need to really tailor that experience for your online students.
Yes, and of course there are always roadblocks. So the next question focuses on what's holding institutions back from growing online programs. Of course, 1/3 of them said, oh, nothing's holding us back, it's our future. But the next largest response has to do with a lack of a coherent online strategy, as well as a faculty resistance to putting courses online. I think, Jason, maybe you could speak to that.
Sure. I love the sentiment, nothing holds us back, it's our future. It's admirable, but there's always constricting factors that institutional leaders face. And it's been my experience that truly this lack of a coherent online strategy, it is indeed the primary restriction that institutions face. It often takes time to get all institutional leaders on board with a single clear vision for why and how online should become part of the fabric of the educational experience at the institution. And it's easy for a department chair or a dean or even a provost to be interested in moving programs online, but until the institution has an articulated online strategy for how it's going to provide the necessary infrastructure to support the needs of developing and maintaining online programs, it's difficult to achieve significant momentum. And institutions that are developing online programs at scale, and that they do indeed have a coherent online strategy. And they've also taken the step of centralizing certain support services. So while there are facets of program development that should remain controlled at the department level, I'd say there are others that may be better suited for centrally being supported.
Absolutely, and we're seeing that we're growing here at Shenandoah, and we're looking at the policy and strategy as key right now for us. We really need to develop in that area and develop programs to help the faculty, or as you all have faculty resistance, to better give them best practices so they aren't quite as resistant and open-minded to the idea. But our biggest issue is the lack of resources and how to support the stress on technology, the faculty, the LMS. For example, currently we don't have an instructional designer. We know that we need one on staff. So those type of things are what Shenandoah is currently going through right now before we roll out large amounts of online or blended classes.
Thank you. And our next question takes a little bit more of a granular look. I'm sorry, I think our reporting and color coding broke down on us on this slide, but if you look at the factors, the order of magnitude of the factors, I think that will help us. But the question addresses challenges that are facing online learning, and it calls out faculty skepticism as a top challenge. And Jason, can you talk to us about how you worked through those issues?
Sure. I think it's interesting to see that faculty skepticism, was reported here by institutional leaders as being really a top challenge in online learning, and I think it speaks to the significant challenge and the opportunity that institutions we have to change some of those perceptions among some faculty that online learning is either just a fad or maybe it can't be of the same quality as face-to-face. And even though there's plenty of research out there that's been published and that talks about well-designed online learning and how it can be just as effective, there are still those who can be skeptics. And I think that's largely due to the fact that maybe they themselves have yet to experience an online learning experience of high quality. I myself, I was privy to have that kind of an experience as a graduate student, and it really solidified for me what's possible in a well-designed online program. And I think many of our faculty who we're asking to consider teaching online, they haven't had that kind of an experience. Maybe they've only known the traditional face-to-face classroom experience. And it's only logical that faculty who've never personally experienced a high-quality online learning experience, that they would have some reservations. And so, to alleviate any faculty skepticism, I think we as institutions need to listen to the concerns that faculty may have and then pursue opportunities to address those felt concerns. And I think about providing high-touch faculty professional development and training support, along with providing, as possible, instructional design and course development assistance. I think that all goes hand in hand and is really important. And along with recognizing the value of faculty participation in online teaching, as part of the tenure and promotion process. I think that's key too. That as faculty have that experience to really get a sense firsthand as to what a well-designed online learning experience is, and they'll get also a sense firsthand of the potential for both the technology and the online pedagogy that's available today. And I know our institution, we've offered a wide variety of different kinds of experiences like that over the years, where faculty can continue to experiment with new models, as well as get a taste of the online learning environment and really what's possible.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, we're very much with Jason on this one. Faculty, majority have not. The skepticism, I really think, is the fact that they, as Jason said, haven't experienced a high-quality online course. It's the unknown for us locally. We still have areas around us that actually don't have high-speed connection to the internet. So technology plays a big part in us assuming that faculty or students would be able to take advantage of these online courses right now. While that's going around, being corrected in the region, that is an issue that we have to address. One of the other big issues is many of our faculty are strong practitioners of the Teaching Naked by Jose Bowman factor, where they use technology as an enhancement and don't really want it interlaid into their course. So we're trying to find a way to twine and combine the Teaching Naked premises and the always there online idea.
Thank you. Well, the other next question has to do with trends in how faculty are, the strategies that are being used to put content online and use tools, or left to their own resources. How do they do that? So maybe Jason, you could start to talk a little bit about what's happening on your campus.
Sure. We are definitely seeing at NIU that faculty, they often prefer to develop their own content online. And I think in large part, this may be due to the fact that just the technology necessary for doing so is becoming so accessible, and it's really easy to use today. And as we're seeing just an ever-growing access to shared and open educational resources that faculty can incorporate, there's increasingly just many pre-existing content options for faculty to choose from. So we definitely are seeing this kind of do-it-yourself model among faculty is definitely popular. And especially when you're moving an individual course from a face-to-face delivery modality to more of a blended or online delivery model, institutions, they often incentivize their faculty to develop the content and build the online course themselves. And certainly to do this, this requires training the faculty, not only on the LMS and other required technology tools, but also often involves providing release time to those faculty, or maybe an additional stipend for their course development efforts. And when you do that, the benefit to having faculty develop their own content, and I think much why they enjoy doing so, is the fact that it mirrors what they're already doing in their face-to-face courses, and it allows them to maintain complete control. And often what we see happen is that faculty who teach face-to-face, they become interested in incorporating technology into their teaching, in which maybe their course, as they do so and they have students maybe participating in activities or things outside of class, their course kind of unknowingly morphs into a web-enhanced course. And then this natural progression then often moves the faculty toward then increasing the online components to the point where the course could be offered in a fully online format. And for institutions that allow their online development to happen in this kind of more organic and grassroots level, this trend toward putting faculty and having the faculty put their own course content online is often what we see results. However, for institutions that are doing that, and we certainly at NIU would fall into that camp, there are some notable concerns when faculty are expected to be those sole developers of their courses, including there can be inconsistencies among the courses in the program. Also, faculty often don't have the time or frankly the desire to become experts in the nuances of the technology, and they rely on assistance from other support staff or those that are highly skilled in that available technology. And I think as we've been looking at institutions that are developing online programs at scale, and is really where we're hoping to be able to head, is that they've often centralized some of that online course development into a team of folks that are comprised of instructional designers or graphic designers and maybe some media specialists who can partner with those faculty and really serve as, letting the faculty serve more as those subject matter experts. And in many circumstances, then faculty who then could work together with some type of a centralized course development team, that can really yield some of the highest quality and most well-orchestrated online experiences because you've got another set of eyes looking at that course and giving feedback. And I think also when you have a course designer work with a faculty member, it's more likely that the course will be designed in a more instructor agnostic way, if you will, so that if another faculty member were to come on board, they could teach that same course if needed. And so, I'd say from our perspective institutionally, I think we need to support both approaches. I think we need to provide the training and support for faculty who do want to develop their own content, but also for as we start to move full programs online, that we start to think about maybe centralizing some of those course development and production support efforts for those online programs.
And here in Shenandoah, we've seen a year ago, we were at, I would say, an 80-20 split, with faculty using 80% of publisher and third-party vendors. And in this last year, we now are at a 65-30 split. Faculty are progressively moving to creating their own content or using the open educational resources, OER sources out there, looking at learning content repositories, Merlot, Explorer, that type of thing, because they have better control instead of just getting a textbook or predefined content and just putting in what they want those students to know. They have more control. It's a little more engaging to have videos from other people instead of just the instructor all of the time. So we're really seeing a growth in the own content, reuse of OER content, and lecture captures is a big piece for us.
Yes, and speaking of tools and functionalities in the LMS, this next slide, we've combined them because they're very related. The question asks, how do you think most of your faculty are using your organization's LMS? And 94% responded that they're posting course content as a document repository, followed then by using the LMS for grading purposes. The related question of what are the most sought after or valued qualities is ease of posting content and efficient and easy use for grading use of grading workflows. Melissa, does that sort of sound reflective of your institution?
It's mostly reflective. We would have the native assignment and quizzes above interactive tools as they go hand in hand with grading. Our percentages are a little higher. We're about 85% using the assignment and quizzes within our LMSs. And the big interaction tools, we're starting to see an increase in wiki use and lecture capture, webinar type items. As far as what is actually sought by the LMS, it's an interesting slide because it depends on who you ask. Users of the student role have very different sought-after desires than those of faculty. Ease of use for everyone, mobile, definitely. If faculty want to have preset content, we do that with templates. So they're not having to re-put in everything in a one post once type idea. Both want integration. They do want to use different tools. Faculty want to use something new, but yet students want to be able to log into one central place. They don't want to have to create 15 different accounts or go to 15 different sites. Consistency, ease of use. And one way that Shenandoah is determining what is being used the most in their classes is we've created a homegrown analytics package. There are third-party packages, but we decided that in-house we could write our own business rules and really tell us exactly which tools in our LMS are being used, which ones aren't, and which outside tools, is Reminder 101 going to be more useful than some other SMS tool? How many people are using SMSs? So we're really relying on analytics, and we're also doing a lot of face-to-face polling of users for them to tell us what they want and what they would like us to get rid of.
I would say at our institution at NIU, I think we've many of the same trends we're seeing in terms of, faculty certainly initially look to using Blackboard for, sharing content electronically and making use of, students are always pressuring faculty to have, easy access to grades and feedback. But I think more than that, really looking at the system as more of a the ability to create a lot of those really engaging and collaborative learning experiences. As we have looked to try to bring on board technology solutions that will really equip our faculty to be even more effective in their teaching and in engaging students, we're often hearing from our faculty, they want that integration. They want use a single login, a single place where they can go, where they can interact with the students. They can provide feedback, and they can have that all in one central location. And I do think I think we're a little bit behind Shenandoah in trying to get a better handle on kind of what specific aspects of the LMS are our faculty using. We just this week, our Blackboard administrator put together some homegrown types of reports and things that we're just going to start to look at in terms of getting a better sense of what are the tools that the faculty are using most, so that we can tailor the kinds of support and really help drive further adoption. Because faculty want to know, what are their colleagues using and what's effective? And so we're hoping that by knowing who's using what tools and in what way, that we can better surface some of those best practices and share those with our faculty.
Thank you. And speaking of tools, now this question focuses on collaboration and communication tools that the respondents are currently using in the classroom, and they found that virtually all use email, and most use an LMS, and over half use lecture capture and social media and video conferencing. Jason, can you talk about that sort of genre of tools in terms of this?
Well, I know at NIU we're definitely seeing, we've seen this widespread adoption of the learning management system, and ironically, our 82% of faculty that use Blackboard almost, exactly matches here the stat here on this slide. And faculty are certainly using email, but they're using the LMS, I think, beyond just this, like we've talked about, kind of the digital filing cabinet, if you will, but really looking at it as more of a collaboration platform. So they are able to send email directly from the system, and they're able to do so much more. I mean, they can post an announcement, and it can automatically email out to the students, and they also can get a push notification in their mobile app. I mean, there's so much that they can do. And one of the things we're seeing that wasn't ranked quite as high in this slide, but the use of web conferencing. More and more we're seeing faculty who are wanting to move a course online or even in a blended format, wanting to have some of those synchronous experiences in collaborations with their students. I'm working with a faculty right now in our School of Nursing, and she's converting a course, face-to-face course that she's taught for years, to fully online. And one of the pieces that's really important to her is to have that same kind of seminar discussion kind of experience, and she's going to look to incorporating some synchronous web conferencing sessions using Blackboard Collaborate to really accomplish that. And so I think more and more we're seeing that faculty and even students, as they become exposed to the capabilities of these kind of collaborative tools, is that they're looking at creative ways they can use those to be meeting outside of class, or to be inviting a guest speaker from another institution, a colleague, to speak to that class. And there's so much that you can do creatively when you start to think outside of the virtual, the physical walls of your campus, and really look at incorporating virtually some of these new approaches to teaching and learning.
And here at SU, we would agree with Jason that our web conferencing percentage would be much higher. We are finding, though, the social media percentage would actually be for us much lower. Our faculty want to use it, but our students really don't want their education world coming into their private social media world. So that's where, you know, in respect to Blackboard, we've really tried to push the social learning area inside of Blackboard so that they could keep their private lives private.
Interesting. Thank you, Melissa. The next question has to do with fostering a sense of connection and community across the student population. And so the findings were that the respondents use a wide variety of tools to foster connection and community. Melissa, maybe you could continue it and sort of elaborate on the findings that we see here in terms of what you are doing at Shenandoah.
Well, our findings are very close. We definitely have electronic newsletters coming out from our student life programs. Our institutional computing department, every school, every department within those schools are sending newsletters out. We have blogging going on, going on Facebook, absolutely. We have a student radio system now that does talk shows about things going on from the student world. One big thing that we've really found for communicating and building that sense of community with students is branding each service. So, for example, for our Blackboard support, we have Tech Week, which is a moose that runs around campus, all of our campuses. And the students really know that they can see that moose and ask any question, get any help on any kind of technology, if they have feedback about their faculty, that type of thing. So we're really trying to brand our services now for better engagement and communications.
Jason?
Yeah, I would say, you know, for us, it's very much a, you know, because of the access to social media nowadays, it's very easy point of entry for departments and colleges and such, and so we're seeing very active use amongst our colleges and departments in using social media to connect with students, and students taking up, you know, the initiative in using a lot of these tools and technologies to kind of form their own communities and to have that sense of connection amongst their peers.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next question about the importance of online programs to attracting and retaining students. So Jason, if you could start us off and focus in on the retention piece and the attraction piece.
Sure, and I think many institutional leaders today would readily admit the importance that they see for strong online programs in attracting and retaining students. I mean, the slide and the results here bear that out with the strong majority saying it's either critical or very important. And I think especially for institutions who are seeking to grow their non-traditional programs, you know, those that are geared for adults, and to offer online programs, whether they're fully online or some sort of blended or hybrid format like I described earlier, I think those provide really flexible participation options that can free students from having to travel to and from campus or reside on campus in order to achieve their academic and career goals. And you know, there's certainly many reasons why why they would want to take one or more online courses, you know, not the least of which is the fact that a growing number of students, as I mentioned earlier, you know, they're graduating from high school and they've taken a blended or online course, and they may prefer that modality, you know, in some instances. Currently, the states of Alabama, Michigan, and Florida, they all have state laws on the books that require every graduating high school senior to have completed at least one online course. And there's other districts and states that are, you know, considering similar mandates. And so as such, I think students, increasingly, we're seeing that they're experiencing online and blended learning at the high school level, and that they're likely going to be expecting that same type of learning and those modes of learning to be available at the post-secondary level. And so as online programs are offered in conjunction with face-to-face programs, when you have both opportunities there, I think it really provides a diversified and a comprehensive set of offerings that students can choose from. And especially at the graduate level, that we're seeing, given the affinity that alumni from an institution will have to that institution, I think there's some obvious market opportunities there of prospective students, those that already have that affinity. And so with online offerings, alumni who are no longer reside in that geographic region, they still have the option to complete a graduate level program at a distance.
Thank you, Jason. And we are kind of running a little short on time, so I'm going to ask you to briefly address primary advantages and how that list of advantages resonates on with the conversations on your campus about online programs.
Sure, and I think it's interesting here to note as I look at the slide that only 28% of institutional leaders felt that the costs for offering strong courses would decrease. I think administrators by and large are realizing that in order to offer high quality online learning, there's significant investments in institutional infrastructure in support of online teaching and the student support that are needed to offer the level of support needed that would be comparable with face-to-face instruction. And I know at our institution, we recognize that these costs are real, but the potential market, is much larger online. So there's some incentives there, and so as much of the interest and geographical presence can be expanded, you can grow, and the value proposition is there to offer those robust online offerings.
Thank you. And so that concludes the formal questions. And what we'd like to do is wrap up with each of my colleagues taking some time to talk about forecasts and moving forward.
So ISU's forecast is really, we want to address the current needs of our current students to improve their retention, to improve their learning outcomes, which ultimately is going to increase revenue, but to also address the possibility of bringing in new non-traditional students, addressing community needs, and again, increasing revenue with us. We're looking into adding articulation agreements, developing more online programs to meet national recommendations from accreditation boards and advising boards. We're focusing on the hybrid approach, blended style versus going totally online. A large portion of us and the investment is going to be in infrastructure to make sure that the technology is there, and faculty training support, make sure we have the resources online, and the whole community buy-in, not just the area where our campuses are, but also the actual SU administration buy-in that we can do this and we can do it correctly.
Wonderful, thank you. Jason, I'm going to let you drive us through the slides for NIU.
Sure, and just as I kind of reflect a little bit, here are a few of the key trends that I see continuing as we continue to build out our online offerings. I think, as we talked about earlier, I think we're going to see a growth in online learning plateau. I think we'll continue to see that growth, but it's going to be, I think, more measured in terms of being more at a consistent and steady pace moving forward. I anticipate that with our institution, we'll be developing some new niche programs that will specifically meet student demand as well as market demand that we would target at students in our region. And with our majority of our currently online students residing within the Northern Illinois region, and with some of the trends we're seeing towards students preferring to enroll in online programs that are within a 100-mile radius, I envision that some of our new programs will be tailored to students in our Midwest area. I think also we're going to be looking at online programs as being just one of many means where we're able to attract new students as well as increase revenue and improve retention. With the heavy competition that there is in the online learning space, I think we're definitely going to be looking at what are our competitive advantages and how can we clearly communicate those to prospective and current students. I also, as I've been, kind of having conversations with other chief online learning officers and leaders at institutions that have vibrant online programs, it's really become clear to me that we're going to need a coherent institutional online strategy and a financial model. Those go hand in hand in I think, critically gaining some buy-in from our institutional leaders. our institution, we're currently in the midst of just a significant internal budgeting overhaul as we look at how can we better maximize our available resources to make academically responsive and fiscally responsible budgeting decisions. And as we look to scale what we're offering, something else that we're really looking at institutionally is how can we invest centrally into some of the support infrastructure that Melissa talked about. We've up to this point taken a very decentralized approach to this, and we've left the majority of the development and support of online programs to individual colleges and departments. And this has been great because it's provided a lot of autonomy, but you as a result, you see duplication of efforts, and sometimes there's inconsistency among when you've got separate colleges and departments building out their own infrastructure. And so I think we're going to be looking at how can we be more efficient institutionally and offer a better online experience, but also if there are key areas that we can centralize to be more efficient, that I think those are some things we'll be looking at. And then just a few final points here. We're really looking at focusing on student career success. That's kind of a really hallmark of our incoming president, and really institutionally that's now a big focus for us. And so I see online learning as being one avenue where we can really help bolster student career success. If you like Melissa mentioned, we're looking at articulation agreements with other institutions, so we make it easier for students to bring credits in and take them back. I think we're also looking at a mix of fully online and blended hybrid programs where we'll have the benefits of some synchronous face-to-face experiences coupled with the flexibility of online. I think we're also going to be looking at growing a number of accelerated online courses, which would be those shorter courses in length but are more in-depth. I think we'll continue to see some lines blurring between online courses and the web-enhanced courses, with faculty continuing to develop their own content for individual courses, but also having instructional designers there who could be skilled in some of the advanced technical skills to assist when we're moving a large number of courses in a program online. And I'd say finally, online faculty training and support will continue for us to be essential for successful online program offerings. So no matter whether faculty are developing the content themselves or if instructional designers are building them, the faculty still need to be trained. And so that's something that will definitely, we need to be equipping faculty for continued success.
Well, thank you so much, Jason and Melissa. I mean, it's fascinating to hear the overlaps that I see going in your directions. And we're going to close this out today with a big thank you to all the participants, and a reminder that in addition to our suite of products and services, we really do have probably one of the largest dedicated to education consulting and services organization there is, that we can address things, work with you on student retention, growing online programs, faculty and professional development, student engagement and outcomes, and measuring outcomes. So thank you, everyone. We've had a great time talking to you today.
Yes, thank you so much, Karen, and to all of our presenters. And for those of you still on, we do have a couple of things you can do if you want more information. We have another webinar. If you enjoyed this one, you can register for an additional webinar, Trends in Boosting Student Retention, on the 17th of this month. You can also see how if you're meeting your students' learning expectations by taking our scorecard. We have an email address if there's anything that you had questions about as related to the webinar. And if you would just take a moment and provide your thoughts on today's event, we have a survey you could take. So thank you all so much again for your time today. We really appreciate it, and thank you to our presenters. It was some really excellent content, and like I mentioned, we'll be sending out the survey and the recording, and just take a quick look at this screen if there's anything else we can do to sort of help you out or get you some more information. So thanks again all.